Hello, hello.
I'm Savannah.
And I'm Elysia.
And this is Burden of Proof. And I forgot how to talk for a second there.
All right. Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back to another edition.
Another week, another case. It's Burden of Proof.
Yes, March was a weird month.
March was weird, but thanks for hanging in with us.
Absolutely. We thank you. And yeah, so we hope you enjoyed the coverage of Jodi Arias.
Yeah, we just wrapped up Jodi. That was a doozy.
That was a doozy.
It really was. But I had fun. I hope you guys had fun.
I did. I was blown away by butt stuff.
I learned so much about Mormons and butts.
Mormons and butts. This is like boats and hoes. Mormons and butts. Oh, what is wrong with me?
I don't know.
All right. Well, I'm excited about today's case because it's from my hometown.
Oh my gosh, another Ohio case.
Akron, Ohio. Yes. So first, I'd like to acknowledge that in the recent case we covered, Lisa McVeigh, and her escape from serial killer Bobby Joe Long, we discussed his ex-wife Cindy and had said, we've never known a Cindy that was anything but sweet and kind.
Oh, somebody did correct us on that.
Yes, and so I was going to say, shout out to Amanda for reminding us that the toy box killer's accomplice, who was definitely a bad Cindy.
Definitely a bad Cindy. Like the worst Cindy ever, maybe?
Possibly the worst. She's
I
definitely
mean,
up there.
Yeah.
And then today's Cindy, you might find, lives in at least a morally gray area.
Did you purposely go out of your way to find a Cindy?
I did not. It actually was a requested case. We've had it on our request list for some time.
Okay.
I've been very excited to look into it because I remember when this happened.
Ooh.
But at the time, I was not as into real true crime.
Right.
I was more dedicated to like watching Law and Order kind of stuff.
Right.
So I had no idea the depth to which this case went.
You have no idea how high I can fly.
Exactly. So
that's a Michael Scott quote. If you don't know that,
hopefully they all know that by now. We say it enough.
That is one that I tend to.
We've said it several times. One or both of us have said that one.
It's such a good one.
It is.
It's the pauses that make it so good.
Yeah. He does. All right. So, thank you for the request to Domini. I don't think we've officially established how to say your name, so I'm so sorry if I'm butchering it. It's either Domini or Domini.
I think it's Domini.
Thank you for requesting this case.
And if you did tell us how to pronounce your name and we're getting it incorrect. What is wrong with me? Something's incorrect with me.
Savannah has forgotten how to talk.
I really have.
And my voice, I'm losing my voice kind of. So, yes, Domini requested it. And and specifically asked for me to do it because it's from my hometown of Akron. And they too were from the Akron area. And I was pumped to get into it. So hold on to your butts and chug that coffee so you stay focused because this case has quite the plot twist.
I need a fidget toy. I can't have a fidget spinner because it makes noise, but
need something.
You know, I almost brought my HR woman at my office, gave out these like weirdly phallic, like weird St. Patrick's Day fidgets. And I thought it was really weird at first, but I actually keep using it. So I should have brought that. I'll post a picture of it.
It's quiet.
Yeah, it's quiet. I'll post a picture of it like Monday or Tuesday.
Phallic shape.
It's not, but it is. I don't know.
I get it.
Sometimes things are just weird.
They are. Or sometimes your mind is just in the gutter.
I don't think it's just me.
Fair.
When I'm going to make it a poll on Thursday or on Friday or Saturday when this comes out, actually. I'll post it and I'll make it a poll and see if people agree with me.
Nice. All right. So here we go. This is the story of who killed Jeff Zack. But we're going to start with one of the other players, if you will.
Okay.
There's many people in this story. So that's why I said chug your coffee.
Okay.
You're going to need to focus.
Okay. Number 1, Jeff Zack has 2 first names.
So do some of the other people.
Wow.
It's all. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking it.
So stay focused.
Okay. I might need to take notes.
It might help. I'm not going to lie.
I'm gonna get a note.
Help.
I'm gonna take notes. And if it helps, I'll let you know.
All right. So we're going to start with Cindy George. Okay. Cynthia, better known as Cindy, grew up without much. Her father was a coal miner, and the family lived with the bare minimum. A roof over their heads, but not a lot of luxuries.
Okay.
From what's been reported. Some people say they were sort of lower middle class. Some people talk as if they were destitute, but determined that she would not live that way forever. She, like many pretty young broke women do, she used her beauty to get ahead.
Yeah, I mean, use what you got.
At some point, she did become a beauty queen, then looking for work where good looks were a definite advantage. In 1978, she auditioned for a position as a dancer at the elite cabaret club and restaurant, the Tangier.
Okay.
It was a Moroccan-themed Las Vegas-style club in the heart of Akron that was known for entertaining the who's who of the city, as well as hosting a number of celebrities, entertainers, and even politicians.
The who's who's.
The who's who. There was a book. Have you never heard of that book? There used to be a publication done like every year of the who's who of I think they even did one nationwide.
Interesting.
Fascinating.
Okay. That sounds like something I would love, actually.
Probably. You'd be like, who's rich?
Yeah.
How can I track them down? Because this is before
Give me
social media. How can I find what? Well, you could have just hung out at the Tangier.
Could have just hung out at the Tangier.
Yeah. So the Tangier opened in 1948. And it was Robert. Where did I get that? I don't know. That's not his name.
You're like, I didn't like it. I changed it. It's
my
Robert.
brain just glitched. I'm sorry. The Tangier opened in 1948 by Mr. Edward George Sr.
Edward, Robert, same thing.
And it took on a huge expansion in the 1970s, creating the glamorous Las Vegas style ballroom that it became known for. And by that time, Ed George Sr., I actually don't know if they were senior and junior. I think they might have had different middle names. But I'm just, for
clarity's sake.
For clarity's sake, I'm calling them senior, junior, whatever. But Ed George Sr. had actually passed the torch to Ed Jr. So it was this Ed George Jr., that met Cindy when she auditioned as a dancer. They didn't hire her to dance, but Ed definitely took a liking to the young blonde beauty queen. It's really the fairy tale story of the wealthy older businessman and the younger but broke beauty queen who fall in love, get married, and live happily ever after.
I don't think so, because otherwise we wouldn't be here.
We'll see.
Oh, okay.
Only the web that Cindy weaved over the years led to an unbelievable family secret and a murder.
A literal skeleton in the closet.
Ed and Cindy did not wait long after marrying to have kids, and they had plenty of them. 7, in fact. Cindy gave birth to 5 of them, and they adopted 2.
Okay.
When I said Ed was wealthy, I mean wealthy.
Right, like they're not like upper middle class. They're like loaded.
To accommodate their large family, they moved to an 8,000 square foot mansion on 18 acres of land just outside of Akron.
Okay.
All of their kids attended private school, and they lived a rather lavish lifestyle. Cindy became known as one of Akron's few socialites, and just as recognizable as Ed in the area's high society. And on a night in 1991, Cindy was making her rounds in Tangier, as always, when she walked by Jeff and Bonnie Zack's table. Jeff was immediately taken with Cindy, and supposedly Bonnie noticed and simply said, "She's way out of your league."
Are they married?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Bonnie and Jeff are married.
Making sure.
So that struck me. I don't know how it strikes any of you, but my thinking was, that's weird that that's what she said. Unless they had an open marriage, in which case I could see somebody saying...
I can see, like, if she's like, well, stop looking at her. She's out of your league anyway. Like, if it was kind of a jokey thing, maybe.
It didn't come across that way.
Okay.
Because that was actually shared on the documentary that I watched. It didn't really seem like that jokey kind of way.
Okay.
It seemed like Bonnie was upset, but instead of being like, why would you bring me to this nice restaurant on a date and now you're checking out other women?
Yeah.
It seemed odd.
Okay.
Okay. So I did not find out why it was fitting until deep into my research.
Okay.
So
are you going to make us wait?
Yeah, you will understand soon. I'm not going to make you wait as long as I had to, but yes. So supposedly, Jeff got up from the table, walked over to Cindy to introduce himself, and before Bonnie could register what was happening, Cindy George was sitting at the table with them.
Oh, hell no.
Cindy then introduced the Zacks to her husband, Ed, and apparently the couples really hit it off.
Oh, they got some couple friends.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't long before the Zacks were regularly socializing with the Georges. Now, let's jump into Jeff Zack. He was reportedly an interesting guy. He was very proud of his Israeli heritage and would openly discuss his time as a paratrooper with the Israeli army. It's reported that he and Bonnie had just moved to Ohio from Arizona after his successful career in finance came to an end due to his mishandling of money. They moved to Akron to start over. Technically, they moved to just outside of Akron, another town where I lived. Technically, they lived in Stowe, Ohio, but, whatever. And once they were there, Jeff began a fairly successful vending machine business.
Okay.
Bonnie Zack had probably hoped starting over would apply to their personal lives as well. But we're here.
Yeah.
So, Jeff had reportedly a long history of being a womanizer, making unwanted advances on women, cheating on Bonnie, and even had a conviction for using an illegal escort service prior to marrying Bonnie.
Okay.
Not knowing Jeff's full and colorful history, Ed George hired him to help out at Tangier, as well as home projects at the George's home.
This is why
on occasion.
This is why you run background checks, people.
Yeah, I believe Cindy comes out later and claims that when they first met him, he claimed to be an oncologist. And then they found out after the fact that, oh no, he just runs this vending machine business. And they still hired him.
I mean, I can kind of see them being like, oh, he was probably intimidated by our wealth and status, so he lied about being a physician. It's just we're so difficult to impress. That's my impression. I've never seen
possibly.
Her, but...
That's possible. Well, hiring Jeff gave workaholic Ed some more time to spend with Cindy and the kids. A friend of the Zacks said in an interview that it seemed as though everywhere they went, Cindy would go as well, but Ed was often working. It doesn't take a genius to see where this is going, but if you're multitasking while listening and missed it, Jeff and Cindy began having an affair. But before we get into the details of Jeff and Cindy's relationship, let's flash forward 10 years from the time they met. On Father's Day weekend of 2001, 911 dispatch received a call from the BJ's Wholesale Club gas station in North Akron, Cuyahoga Falls area that a man had just been shot in broad daylight in the middle of the day at their gas station.
Okay.
Most likely due to the efforts of some witnesses nearby who were medical professionals, the man was actually still alive when the first responders arrived. He was sitting in the front seat of an SUV parked at a pump and had a single gunshot wound to his head. Police identified him as Jeff Zack. They interviewed the several eyewitnesses at the station and surprisingly found many had the same story. In just the short time that Jeff was sitting at the pump after pulling in to get gas, a motorcyclist, whom everyone presumed to be a man due to his size and build, pulled up to the adjacent pump, got off the bike, made the shot into the side of Jeff's face, and drove away. The man was covered by a helmet and in head-to-toe black, so no one was able to give any identifying information as to what he looked like exactly, but they all said that the bike was a black racing-style motorcycle with lime accents, otherwise known as a crotch rocket with a twist.
That's so funny.
Due to the panic the gunshot had caused, none of the witnesses were able to tell police which direction the man took off.
Yeah, I mean, fair.
Detectives were at a loss initially because the first question in a shooting such as this is, was it a road rage incident? But no one witnessed any sort of confrontation or altercation. And one witness that they eventually talked to said he saw the motorcycle circling the gas station a time or two prior to Jeff's arrival.
Okay.
Corroborating eyewitness testimony, detectives found only one shell casing about 100 feet from Jeff's vehicle. They also learned from the manager of the gas station that Jeff was a frequent customer, regularly stopping in on Saturdays to purchase gas as well as snacks for his vending machine business. His BJ's
is a wholesale company.
Yeah, it's like Costco or Sam's Club. I know they're just not as big as those two, so just in case anybody doesn't know what that is. So you can buy big things of candy and snacks.
I immediately realized why he was at a BJ's,
Yeah, okay, great. So while detectives were looking for answers, Jeff was rushed away in an ambulance, clinging to life by shallow breath. The gunshot entered just under his left eye and exited below his right ear. So it went all the way through.
That's terrible. That's all. Oh, nope.
Yeah, sorry.
Nope, it's okay.
Before they are even done at the scene, detectives got the call that Jeff did not survive the drive to the hospital. Officers were sent to the Zack's home where they informed his wife, Bonnie, and his son about the incident. They also needed to find out more about Jeff and why someone might do this. Bonnie told them she had no idea who would have done such a thing. No, he's a great guy. Checks out women right in front of me.
Hires illegal escort services. Lies about being an oncologist. Mishandled a financial business. Great guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying he was a bad person, but I'm just saying there are lots of reasons
this
that you
is
should tell police.
Yeah. This is definitely one of those stories, just like we covered with Jodi Arias, where did he deserve to get gunned down in a parking lot? Absolutely not. But he wasn't probably the greatest guy.
It's not a clean history here, people.
I'm not going to cover this story as he lit up a room. He was always so joyful and brought out the best in everyone. This is not one of those situations.
He brought out women from the backyard that he was hiding from his wife.
Yeah. So, nobody deserves to get gunned down. But the reality is he had a long history of not being the best guy. That being said, there were multiple possibilities as to who might be pushed into wanting this man dead.
She should have said all of this to the police.
Yeah. But she didn't. Not at first, anyway.
Well, she was probably, like, trying to process.
Yes.
There wasn't, like, an immediate fight that happened 2 days ago, you know, that she's thinking, like, oh, my gosh, that's the perfect answer. You know, I understand why she's...
Through interviews with Jeff's friends and business connections, they found out that he wasn't always the most beloved guy, as I said, and had recently had a dispute with some building contractors who were making threats because Jeff refused to pay them. Detectives spent time tracking down each of the contractors and questioning them about the situation, but every one of them had an alibi and checked out. And of course, they all denied having any knowledge of anything.
Right.
So they were kind of at a dead end. And detectives decided to reach out to Bonnie Zack again. When they pressed her whether Jeff had any secrets she knew about or may have uncovered since his death, she admitted that she held back one detail. No surprise, the thing that Bonnie had held back was telling them about his affair. Bonnie explained that Jeff had had a long-time extramarital relationship with Cindy George. To her knowledge, shortly after Jeff began working for the Georges, he and Cindy became more than just friends. Bonnie learned about the affair in 1998 when she overheard him on the phone with Cindy. When Bonnie confronted Jeff, he confessed to her that he had been having an affair, but he promised it would end. So she gave him another chance and tried to forgive him. Unfortunately, contact between Jeff and Cindy either never ceased or was reignited at some point. Because Bonnie says that about a year before his murder, she overheard him once again on the phone with Cindy, but she told detectives that she believed that they were just back to a business relationship or a friendship.
Okay.
Now, this is a tricky situation for me because I completely understand Bonnie had her reasons for staying with this man, whatever they may be.
Right.
We can probably speculate on what they might have been once we get to the end of the story and you hear everything. But yeah, obviously it's a little off-putting to hear, like, really? You told the cops that you believed they were friends? After he admitted to having an affair? Like, I don't know about that, Bonnie. But I'm sure she had her reasons for why she stayed. So Bonnie lets it go. They continue their whatever. And then about a month before Jeff's murder in May of 2001, he suddenly came to Bonnie and confessed that he and Cindy had been having an affair again, but this time it was really over. And this time he wasn't lying because Cindy had ended things.
Okay.
With no evidence that Bonnie had the means to hire a man to kill Jeff, and obviously she was at home with their son when all of that had taken place.
Right.
Detectives turned to the next obvious person with motive and means. Ed George, Cindy's husband. They contacted Ed at work and asked him to come in for an interview, which he initially agreed to. However, the person who appeared at the police station to talk with detectives was Ed's attorney. And the attorney informed them that Ed and Cindy will not be coming in for any kind of questioning.
Yeah, because they're rich people
Yes.
and they know better.
So,
I mean, that sounds horrible, but I just mean, like...
Well, and they have the means to just call up an attorney and be like,
they have
hey,
an attorney that they know regularly.
can you drop what you're doing right now and go to the police station?
Right.
Yeah. So detectives started contacting friends and employees of the Georges in an attempt to find any possible leads. They found some who would agree to come in for an interview, but before each of them did, one of the Georges' attorneys would call and say, that person's not coming to speak to you.
Okay. So they're just blocking every avenue.
Yes.
Interesting.
About 6 months later, one of the Georges' nannies finally came forward with information about Cindy's affair with Jeff. She had lived with the Georges for 13 years.
Wow.
And knew as much as anyone about the affair, as she had been witness to a lot of their time together in the home when Jeff was supposedly working on projects around the house. The nanny told detectives that Cindy and Jeff's relationship was very volatile, and she witnessed multiple times where Jeff was abusive towards Cindy, even giving her a black eye once.
Wow. That's real ballsy for a man who's not her husband. I mean, like,
yeah.
Really? I mean, not that her husband should have done it. That sounds horrible, but I just
no,
like,
I didn't take it like that. But yeah, no, because you're hiding this from your husband,
right?
What, like, your husband's not going to see the black eye and be like, "What happened? Who did this to you? What's going on?"
Right.
But I think anybody that works in the restaurant business knows how much. Like, even if you work at a corporate-owned restaurant, you see how much managers work.
Yeah.
And this being, like, a huge restaurant that was always bustling, always, like, one of the busiest places in Akron. And he is the owner. It's a family-owned business. Yeah. He was there all the time. But somehow, since we're on the topic, the nanny also told police that it was Ed George that was actually more involved in their kids' lives. That Cindy was always, like, worried about herself a lot. And, like, always off shopping or having an affair or, or whatever. And that was the one thing that Ed would take the time to be there for the kids when necessary. Who knows how accurate that is? Maybe that's just that nanny's perception. I don't know. But yeah, Ed was gone a lot. They had this affair in the George's home and somehow still managed to hide it from him.
Right.
How is that possible? Well,
because he was gone.
He was either turning a blind eye or just gone and didn't catch subtle hints, even black eyes. Or she was really good at makeup.
Yeah, maybe.
Which is entirely possible too. Into the discussion with the nanny, she told them that Cindy and Jeff's relationship was volatile, as I said. And she claimed that she asked Cindy once, "Why do you put up with this?" And said that she didn't understand Cindy's response. But it was, "I can't leave him because he'll take one of the kids to Israel."
What?
Mm-hmm.
So was one of the children Jeff's?
That's a good guess, isn't it? Puzzled by the comment as well, detectives dug through what they had again, including a picture of the entire George family. And one of them noticed that 4 out of the 5 biological children look a lot alike. Like, so much so that they could be twins, is kind of how one of the detectives put it, although I understand how twins work, and that's not that's not a thing, unless they're identical twins. Right. It's just happenstance if fraternal twins look alike.
They look like brothers and sisters.
Yes, but they looked a lot alike. You know how in some families...
Oh, some genes are strong, man.
Yeah, some families, all the kids will look alike, and then in other families, you're like, you're not brother and sister. No way. Yeah, well, this was 4 out of 5 of them all looked alike. That 5th one did not. See, Ed George, no surprise, he's of Syrian descent.
Okay.
And Cindy is as white can be, with blonde hair, blue eyes.
Right. Beauty queen.
Beauty queen. But given that, that's not entirely impossible to end up with that combination of children.
No, I mean, genetics are a weird thing.
But the circumstances do justify asking the question.
Yeah, I think so.
Is it possible that this other kid is not Ed's? So they first confirmed that the child was born during the time of Cindy and Jeff's affair. And once they had that confirmed, they requested a court order to check the paternity of the child. And lo and behold, the child was fathered by Jeff Zack.
I'm kind of surprised that that was allowed. That they got that as a court order. Because...
I think because it was evidence to...
Like motive?
It was motive for murder.
But that's just like... It just feels like we. I just have never. I don't think I've ever seen a court-ordered paternity test in this setting.
Yeah. I can't say that I have either, but I assume that that's why it's allowed, is because it would.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Prove
but
motive.
I just hadn't heard of that before.
Yeah.
Creative.
So at this point, detectives believed that the motive was that Jeff Zack was a threat because he may go public with the affair and fight for custody of the child since Cindy had ended the relationship. Regardless, they were at another dead end because the Georges had lawyered up themselves and apparently everyone around them. So it wasn't until May of 2002, nearly a year after the murder, that they received a phone call from a man claiming to have information on the shooter. The man told detectives that a woman named Christine Tadero had told him that she believed her ex-husband, John Zaffino, had killed Jeff Zack. Obviously, the detectives paid a visit to Christine at her home, and she was extremely reluctant to talk to them initially, but eventually she explained to them that she was John's second wife, and though they had been divorced for years, she had spoken to him about a year earlier, and John talked about having a major problem with a white-haired Israeli guy and was pretty angry about it. Christine said she thought nothing about it at the time, but when she saw a news article about the murder of Jeff Zack and realized he matched how many white-haired Israeli guys are in
Akron, Ohio?
Akron, Ohio. Not too many.
Akron's a pretty...
It's like a small,
yeah.
It's not small, but it's like a medium-ish size city. I mean, it's pretty diverse. It's gotten more diverse in more recent years, but...
Still, niche group that we're looking at here. White
kind of, yeah. Anyway, she realized that Jeff Zack matched the description. Instead of calling the police, she called John and asked him about it. She just flat out... Did you do that?
Okay.
She said his response was something to the effect of, well, he's not going to have to worry about parting his hair anymore. And if you haven't already seen our social media posts, you're probably thinking, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, I haven't seen a picture of this person yet, so.
So if you have access, I recommend checking out the picture or pictures of Jeff on our post. If you don't, the best way I can describe it is that Jeff clearly had very thick and somewhat unruly head of hair. The kids today might say it's giving troll vibes.
Okay.
Now detectives had to consider that Ed and Cindy George may not have had anything to do with it, but they wouldn't know until they questioned John Zaffino and found what his connection to Jeff Zack was. Now, John was a 36-year-old unemployed trucker who was definitely not hanging out in the same circles as Jeff or the Georges. Detectives were first able to speak with some of John's friends and a couple of his neighbors who confirmed that John did have a connection to the Georges.
Okay.
To their bewilderment, John's connection was not as Ed George's contracted hitman as they thought. You know, because when they hear, like, oh, he's connected.
Yeah.
They're thinking an unemployed trucker. Like, he was like a country boy from Pennsylvania originally. They just assumed that the Georges must have hired him to do something. Rather, he was Cindy George's second lover.
Oh, okay. The plot, as they say, thickens. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So
at the same time, like...
There was some overlap.
There was
yes.
Okay, so not one man, but not two men, but three men.
Well, husband.
Right. Husband and
boyfriend number 1.
boyfriend number 2.
Boyfriend number 2.
Okay.
Apparently, John saw Cindy leaving a bar less than a year before Jeff's murder. He approached her with a terrible pickup line, and she said, "Yes, you'll work in the rotation just fine."
I wrote in.
I'm just kidding.
I did start taking notes because there are a lot of people.
There's a lot of people.
And I wrote, connected to George's via Cindy's vagina. And I have now looked at pictures of these people. So, have faces. Yes. I highly recommend connecting the faces because it makes it interesting.
Yeah. John and Cindy started seeing each other, but unlike Jeff, there's no mention of John ever going to the Georges' home. They mostly met out, or she would go to his apartment. Now, for a minute, that made it look like to the cops that maybe the motive was simply jealousy.
Okay.
But their meeting place wasn't the only difference between John and Jeff. John was a blue-collar guy, as I said, and instead of him providing gifts or services to her, she began financially supporting him.
Oh, she found herself a little sugar baby.
Mm-hmm. Cindy paid John's bills, including rent, and even gave him spending money for groceries. Detectives then searched the DMV records and discovered that John had in fact purchased a black with lime accent motorcycle about 3 weeks or so before the murder. They tracked the dealer the motorcycle was purchased and were told by the dealer that the man who bought the bike claimed his name was John Smith and had bought it, like I said, 3 weeks before the shooting.
Yeah.
They also mentioned that he told them that he did not plan on keeping the bike very long. The dealer then did a search for an identical motorcycle online and found one for sale, but the seller lived in Pennsylvania.
Oh.
They did not, of course, yet know that John was from Pennsylvania.
Oh, dang it. I was
Originally, he was from
Pennsylvania. This is coming together a little too easily.
Yeah. So, leaving no stone unturned, they looked into the seller's identity and found out that it was John Safino's first ex-wife. So, not the one that called them, but another one.
Other ex-wife.
They go and talk to this woman, and she told detectives that 2 days after the shooting, John showed up at her house with the motorcycle and offered it to her as payment on all the child support he was behind on.
I mean, you can't make this crap up.
Yeah. Your face is exactly, yep.
Okay, sure. Sounds good.
Yeah, she said she knew it was weird, but it was better than nothing.
I'm thinking
so
of like tax implications.
Yeah, like how do you do that? I don't know. I don't know how you do that. How do you go to a dealership and buy a motorcycle claiming that your name is John Smith? You have to put your name on the thing, which he obviously did because they tracked it through the DMV. Like I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know if he falsified something. None of my sources like dug in, went in that deep to the details of how that worked. But in any case, apparently, I will say this isn't in my notes, but I did come to find out that part of the reason that I think she was able to take it and do something was because her new husband actually sold cars or like had a dealership.
Okay, so then it's maybe not that weird.
I think that's why she was quicker to accept it because she's like, oh, well, he can just take it to his dealership and sell it.
And she's like, oh, he knows that. Okay, so so maybe that's not that weird.
So she accepted it with nothing but circumstantial evidence at this point. They still didn't have enough to arrest John. So they had to just continue the investigation. And I don't know exactly how much longer before, but eventually one of John's coworkers came forward with information about selling a couple of guns to John shortly before the shooting.
Mm-hmm.
One of the guns he sold to John was a .357 Magnum that took the same hollow point bullets that were used to kill Jeff. 15 months after the shooting, they finally had enough to arrest John. And initially, John was very sure of himself. He believed there was no way they had enough evidence against him. So he sat in the interrogation lying about all sorts of things, including his relationship with Cindy. He told them, "Oh, I met her once a long time ago, but I don't have a relationship with her." The detectives let him weave his web of lies because, as one of them said in an interview, a lie is almost as good as a confession. The alibi John gave them was that he was with a friend at a car show at the time of the shooting. So the detectives pulled out his phone records that showed that he was on the phone with that friend during the time that he claimed to be with him in person. And the cell phone record proved he wasn't at the car show until 2 hours after the shooting, after he said he was. Then they tell him that they have testimony from his neighbors that they've seen Cindy at his apartment regularly, including the night before they arrested him.
Literally, we're still seeing her.
She was just there. We probably just passed her on the road as we came in to get you.
Her tire marks are still there.
Yeah. Suddenly, John's cocky attitude shifted, and he put his head down and said, "You guys got me.
You got me.
You got me." But John refused to cooperate further and asked for an attorney. Nevertheless, detectives continued to dig into records and found that the coworker wasn't the only person John called around the time of the shooting. That coworker friend.
Yeah.
He also called Cindy both before and right after the shooting. When they dug into John's finances, they found a large deposit for the amount he paid for the motorcycle just before he purchased it. And once able to get the George's records, they confirmed that Cindy had made a large withdrawal from her account for the exact same amount just before John's deposit.
So, really? I mean, that's just so weird. There's no explanation for that.
So
maybe he just found it in his jeans. You know how you find cash?
You just happened to find $5,300 in your jean pocket.
And she happened to take it out.
Yeah.
Maybe she wanted to buy a Dyson.
Maybe.
Or a lot of Dysons.
You never know.
Just saying.
So now the theory was that Cindy wanted Jeff out of the way to protect her child, and John was willing to be the hitman because it meant that he could be her number one lover boy.
Okay, I'm tracking. It's giving Cersei Lannister a little bit.
Despite that evidence connecting Cindy, John refused to incriminate her.
Because he loves her. And the fact that she pays his rent.
Something. Something like that. Yeah. It's hard to actually, I don't know. It's hard to know, which you'll see at the end. John was charged with aggravated murder, and his trial began in February of 2003. The prosecution offered evidence that the murder was not only premeditated, but actually a second attempt. Apparently, John Zaffino had been found in early of May 2001 by a park ranger at the Cuyahoga Valley National Park with an empty holster in his car. The ranger, thinking it strange, was like, okay, and talked to him, but there's no evidence that he committed any crime or anything. Yeah. So he just had to write a report about it, but let him go. A few days later, a hiker found a .32 caliber pistol in the park near the area where John was found. And the .32 caliber pistol matched the second gun that John's coworker said he sold to him. And the prosecutor theorized that John's initial plan was to hide the gun in a remote location, lure Jeff there, and then shoot him. At the time, the district attorney did not believe they had enough to charge Cindy with the murder, but she did play an important role in their case against John. The build-up to her testimony was immense because, remember, she had not once spoken to any law enforcement or prosecutors. Only her lawyer would speak to them. But all of the tension quickly deflated when Cindy got on the stand and pleaded the fifth to most of the questions presented to her.
She's just like, I don't know. I do not recall.
No, she literally said, I plead the fifth.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Then why did she get on the stand? Was she subpoenaed, I'm assuming? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, they definitely had to subpoena her because her lawyers wouldn't let her talk.
I mean, listen, it is her right to do so.
Mm-hmm. So it was her right, but it was terrible for John's case because it was pretty much just as incriminating as her saying anything.
Right.
But it was really his ex-wife, Christine Tadero, that delivered the final blow when she testified about his response to her when she asked did you kill Jeff? And she had also cooperated with detectives and had been taping conversations that she had with John during the investigation.
Okay.
And though he never directly confessed, he did often sound very paranoid in the conversations, and he warned her not to talk to the police. So,
okay.
Again, almost as incriminating as what you would actually say. And despite the case being very circumstantial, John Zaffino was found guilty for the murder of Jeff Zack and sentenced to 23 years to life. Jeff's family and friends were relieved, but disappointed that Cindy was not going to prison with him. Bonnie Zack addressed John directly in her statement at the sentencing, speaking out about his willingness to be the fall guy for Cindy George.
I mean, they have a reason to say that for sure, because she's not saying anything.
Mm-hmm. John remained silent about Cindy's involvement. However, it didn't take long for him to screw up. Once again, this is your public service announcement that when the prison system says they record your phone calls, they mean they actually record your phone calls.
Yeah, like all of them. All your calls.
Like all of them.
Yeah.
And if there's anything left open in your investigation, they will listen to them.
Right. And you know what I just thought about? I'm sure they have like AI listening to that stuff now to catch things.
Possibly, yeah.
And that's,
So when John would talk to family on the phone, he would continuously say things like, my friends better help me. My friends better put more money on my account. My friends better do this or that, or my friends are going to go down.
Not his friends.
In one conversation, he said, quote, see, once the appeal gets accepted, I can get bond. Now, they better bond me the F out of here. I don't care if it's $10 million. They better bond me out. Call my friends and tell them that they will pay for it. Get the checkbook out and not worry about it, because this is the way it's going to be, or they're going to lose their freedom.
All right. I mean, he said what he said.
Yes. However, John's appeal was not accepted.
I was going to say, no, I mean, you shot the guy.
And he never made good on his threats. Instead, he served his time quietly, even after being offered a deal to testify against Cindy.
Wow, he has some real loyalty that she did not reciprocate because she pled the fifth.
Between the prison calls and confirmation that John was on the phone with Cindy for nearly 3 hours while at that park that he was caught at, where the gun was planted, prosecutors finally felt they had enough damning evidence against Cindy to press charges. So, they caught her while she was out for a day of shopping at the mall and arrested her at Bath & Body Works. Or outside of Bath and Body Works. I don't know.
My gosh, that must have been the best smelling arrest ever.
And a grand jury indicted her for conspiracy and complicity to commit aggravated murder in January of 2005.
Yeah.
Now, Cindy's bail was reduced from $10 million to $2 million, which she, of course, made easily.
I was going to say, because she's only having to pay like a quarter of that.
Yeah.
It might be like an eighth or something. It's not nearly as much as it sounds.
Yeah. Leading up to the trial, her defense attorneys requested a bench trial, otherwise known as a non-jury trial, when the judge denied their request to change venue. It's a rare choice, but they believed that a jury from Akron would be biased against one of the richest women in the area.
Yeah, they would be right, for sure.
Yeah. So the trial began mid-November 2005 and was quite the spectacle. The local press wrote, quote, "Her lover is killed, a second lover is convicted of the murder, and a love child is the supposed motive."
Wow. I mean,
the drama.
It does write itself. I mean,
it does. Yeah.
That poor kid.
Yeah.
Finding out that dad is not really dad, but dad is your dad.
Your dad. Know? Yeah.
Your dad is your dad. He's just not your father.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Yep. The prosecution presented a lot of the same evidence that they had at John Zaffino's trial. However, they did have a few tricks up their sleeves. Testimony that Ed George had made an off-the-books request to a friend in law enforcement about repeated phone calls to his home that would hang up when he answered, and he said he didn't want an official investigation because he believed that it had to do with Cindy. And this was going on right before the shooting. There was testimony that John had allegedly confessed to another inmate since his trial. They also presented financial records and testimony showing Cindy subsidized John's ability to not only commit the murder, but to his defense as well. That's right, John's defense attorney testified that it was Cindy George who paid his fees for the trial.
Wow. I mean, that's interesting. It's interesting that it doesn't fall under confidentiality, but I guess it doesn't because people do affidavits for attorney's fees all the time. Wow, interesting.
Finally, and probably most disturbing, in my opinion, were letters that Cindy had written to John in prison. Despite the letters containing talk of their sexual affair and her still having feelings for him, she sent one of them with a Bible and would regularly talk about Catholic saints, true Christianity, and specifically says, quote, "Usually I blow your candle out at 11:30 and take my cross to bed and say my prayers."
What? Honey, no.
How's Ed feel about that?
Yeah, how does your husband feel about that?
It's mentioned, I haven't mentioned it, but it's mentioned in several of my sources that she really viewed her husband as a father figure because he was 15 years older than her.
Okay, but he's still that's not, no. No. Do you hear me? No.
Do you see why I have problems with big age gaps?
No.
So, but that being said, that's not the reason that they shared the letters. They shared the letters because in one of them, she told John to follow the attorney's advice because, quote, "We cannot make one mistake." We. Of course, there wasn't much defense other than she was essentially pleading the fifth again by refusing to testify. And she supposedly had no reason for wanting Jeff dead because, well, she had ended the relationship. And he was no longer a problem. He had moved on, which he did. He reportedly did. He reportedly had already started another affair with somebody else.
Of course.
But that doesn't mean that he wasn't a problem.
Because you did have his child.
Who was calling your house then that your husband noticed? Was that John? Well, no, they confirmed that she would communicate with John on a separate cell phone. So who was calling your home phone?
Mm-hmm.
It's time for the verdict. The judge agreed that there was not enough evidence to find Cindy guilty of conspiracy.
I kind of figured that was coming. It is a lot of circumstantial stuff.
Yes. The packed courtroom that included all of the George family erupted into cheers, and the judge quickly called order, announcing, "I'm not done."
Hold your horses.
There was 2 charges here. I'm not done. On the charge for complicity to commit murder, the judge found Cindy guilty. Now, according to Ohio law, the charge is basically the same as being charged with aggravated murder. It carries the same possible sentence.
Right.
And the judge in this case found it fair to sentence Cindy to the same sentence as John, 23 years to life.
Wow. That is an aggressive sentence. I'm kind of surprised. I mean,
I wasn't expecting that.
I wasn't expecting.
But,
I mean, I'm not saying that it's not deserved, but I'm just...
Yeah. I didn't expect her to get as long of a sentence as him.
No.
The only comment Cindy made to the press at the time was, "I didn't do it."
No, but you did, like, pay him to do it, kind of.
And then she went and had her mugshot, or, the initial photo, prison photo, and she's smiling real big.
I hate when people do that.
Yeah, me too.
It's like
gross.
A huge true crime pet peeve of mine.
Yeah. I get it. She was always pretty and always a beauty queen and always but what do you think that says to people when you just got convicted of murder that you claim you didn't do? Well, sorry. You helped. You were complicit in a murder.
You knew a murder was going to happen and you didn't do anything.
And then you go and you're all smiley for your picture. That's weird.
I'm going to jail.
Yay.
Sorry. I got a little bit into it. Get ready with me to go to jail. Like,
hold on, Judge, can I take my phone with me just for right now?
Judge, will you be in
my TikTok
day in the life? Day in the life of me getting booked into prison.
Later in 2005, Cindy went public with her side of the story. She alleged that Zack had been abusive, even placing the barrel of a gun in her mouth while stating, quote, "You're not playing the game." He did this when she made an attempt to tell his wife Bonnie about the affair. She claimed that every time she attempted to end the relationship, he would threaten to harm her family if she did not comply to his demands. At that point, Cindy had hired new attorneys to assist with her appeal. So,
yeah, because appeals are a different beast.
Mm-hmm. One of their points of argument within the appeal was that the judge should have never allowed her to use the attorneys that she had, because they're the same attorneys that she hired to represent John Zaffino in his trial. Your face. Like, what?
What?
Yeah. So,
I mean, okay, so I gotta process this out loud. So my first thought was, well, he went to jail, so they didn't do a very good job, and you are fine with hiring them again. But then I thought about it, and I'm realizing that, like, she wanted him to get caught for that because she wanted his name on it, not hers. So in that respect, they did a good job. I mean,
But isn't it still, and this is what these appeals attorneys were saying, that it should have been a conflict of interest for those attorneys.
No, it is.
To be representing her after they represented him.
I mean, but they, who was the client? The first time around is the question.
Mm-hmm.
Because if she's paying the bills, it's her name on all their paperwork. She's hiring them to do this. I mean, I think the client is still the defendant.
I mean, that's part of their argument is that, like, they should have never taken payment from her, but they did. And since they did,
well, they can take.
They definitely shouldn't have. They could if she wasn't potentially, if she was just a friend paying for him, but she was a person of interest as well. She was a suspect as well. So they should have said, no, we're not going to take payment from you because you're being investigated for the same crime.
I want to see their engagement letter. I want to see, does it say like in the defense of this crime? Because if it's like a general defense, then I can see it. But if it's like very specific for
I'm
Cindy
sure
George hiring blank attorneys to defend John Savino, then that's so interesting. Whether or not it's a conflict.
Yep.
I can go both ways. But why does my gut say that it's not a conflict?
The judge allowed it.
It's a different case. It's a different charge. It's a different person.
I don't know. My gut says that it should be a conflict because it's the same crime. But
no, it's a different crime.
Well, it's true. It's in connection to the same.
But I can see why this is up for debate.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they know it. Yeah, but it's not. It's a different beast because it's about complacency. These are the things that I enjoy about our niche.
It's like, is a hot dog a sandwich?
And the answer is no, it's a taco.
No, it's an American taco.
It's an American taco.
Well, it kind of doesn't matter because on March 22nd, 2007, to many people's dismay, the appellate court did not order a new trial. They agreed with them.
Yeah.
But they did not order a new trial. They instead reversed her conviction, ruling that the evidence was insufficient to prove guilt.
I'm not surprised. I'm upset, but I'm not surprised.
Yep.
I was thinking they were going to resentence her. I didn't think they were going to...
I thought they would give a new trial.
I am...
And just say you have to use different attorneys.
Yeah.
But no. They reversed.
Wow.
And the state appealed, but the reversal was upheld. And Cindy George was a free woman.
Yeah, and they can't charge her again.
And they cannot charge her again. Cindy's statement...
I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's okay.
But there wasn't a ton of evidence. I mean, they don't know what was happening on those phone calls in the woods, right?
Yeah.
There's the money.
Yeah.
There's the circumstances.
To me, I'll be honest, there's enough circumstantial evidence that I would have been inclined, but I do understand how they would say, it's not beyond a doubt.
Right.
I get it, but like, dang, man. I know that's real professional. Dang, man.
Dang, man.
Come on, man.
I mean,
that's...
Wow. I'm really on the fence about this because we know that at some points he was abusive. So her stories could absolutely be true.
Oh, yeah.
Was she complicit?
I'm not even necessarily doubting because the nanny said he was pretty much abusive.
Right.
So I don't doubt what she's saying, but I think that just gives you all the more motive.
It does, but at the same time, like, he obviously has shown over this whole case his loyalty. John Savino has shown so much loyalty to Cindy that I can easily see him just like defending her honor and not involving her. Like, yeah, she can be on the phone with him while he walks through the woods, but like, she doesn't know what he's doing there. And she was regularly giving him money, so they couldn't prove that money was specifically to pay him to commit this murder.
That's true.
There's a high level of the burden of proof here. That's a lot to do.
It is.
And
it's about to get messier.
And I don't personally think that her pleading the fifth is the same as a confession for her because she has these high level attorneys that she's known for, I'm assuming a long time. She has a ton of attorneys on deck, I'm sure. And they are obviously going to tell her not to talk.
Yeah. Yes. I agree with that. And I also believe that it had a lot to do with just not wanting, because even though the trial is about the murder, really, you're also on trial about your affair.
Yeah, personally.
And I think that she did not want to actually have to talk about her affair.
This is really interesting. I like this case a lot.
Me too. So Cindy's statement to the press was, quote, "Throughout this storm, our faith has sustained us. We are tattered and worn, but still standing. With this decision and the closure it provides, it is time that we as a family move forward with our lives." Ugh.
Yeah, I don't love that. I still don't like her, but
it appears that they did. Ed George had testified at Cindy's trial, and despite finding out about the affairs and that the one child was not his, he said, "I mean to keep my vows to her."
Well, listen. Good for him.
And I tried to find if they have divorced since, and I found no divorce records in Summit County. So I'm assuming that at least legally speaking, they're still married.
Yeah.
This is where it gets juicy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as if it's not already.
Just getting juicy? This has been interesting.
Okay, so I did find in the county records that Jeff Zack's widow, Bonnie, filed a civil suit on behalf of his estate for civil conspiracy, wrongful death, and fraudulent concealment against John Zaffino and the Georges.
Okay.
They settled it in September of 2008 for $650,000, which after attorney and court fees left $428,000 for Jeff and Bonnie's son, Brian.
I know that sounds like that's not enough money. That is not enough money.
I agree. But you know this in civil litigation. This is what I hate about civil litigation is like you go up against somebody much wealthier. Well, they have all this money. They can continue fighting you and they can continue dragging it out. And you don't have that kind of money to continue paying for court fees. And the longer you go, the more fees are going to be taken out of what money you do get. So you reach a point where you just accept what you can.
And it's going to be hard to convince anybody that the Georges owed them money if she wasn't,
if she got, with her conviction overturned.
Right.
I think if that conviction had been upheld,
that would have been different.
Bonnie had a better shot at getting more money. Absolutely.
But I'm glad that they did that and that they were smart enough or, advised well to file the civil suit because that's, at least good for her son, for their son to be able to
get something.
Yeah.
So upon the news of that lawsuit, a reporter interviewed John Zaffino, who claimed he had been visited by one of the Akron detectives on the case, along with 2 federal agents who were allegedly investigating the murder again.
Okay.
There was talk about there being connections to organized crime, and John upheld that he was innocent.
I'm sorry, buddy. No, you're not.
Not that they thought that John was in the organized crime. He's claiming that they were alluding to it being like Israeli arms dealers and stuff like that. But there's no confirmation of this. Like, I didn't find any confirmation of this from any other articles. This is just what John is saying. So, who knows?
Here's what I'm going to say on that. If it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it was you, John.
I definitely think that there was enough. I think that his conviction definitely had enough, even though it too was a circumstantial case. I think that there was enough circumstantial evidence to.
Are you kidding me? The freaking bike.
The bike.
The bike.
Yeah.
Come on.
And even though witnesses couldn't say, oh, yes, that's him, because he was covered head to toe, his build was the same.
Yeah.
Like, a witness did provide that much, that the build of the guy was the same as John's build.
Yeah.
So.
No, his conviction was solid to me.
He, at this point, when this article was done in 2008, he did admit finally that he had a relationship with Cindy, but he continued to deny that he had anything to do with the murder. He said there's no hard feelings against Cindy, and he made the point that he had not taken any deal to testify against her because none of the prosecution's theory was true.
Okay.
So
you can say what you want.
It's kind of one of those things where it's not that I don't believe that he did it, but I question, like, why would you not flip on her?
Right. That is,
unless it's not true. Like you said, it may not have been. It may have just been him
doing it on his own.
Doing it on his own, and he doesn't want her to get in trouble for it.
If he flips on her, then he is not going to have any support in prison.
Yes. That's the other thing. That's why I'm not convinced by him not flipping that means that he's being honest and saying, oh, no, she had nothing to do with it. And that she completely had nothing to do with it. I just don't know. Is it that? Or is it because she continued to write to you and send you money and stuff that you're not going to flip on her?
Well, he would still have gotten more out of it if he had flipped on her. If he had made the deal, he could have gotten out of jail, or had a reduced sentence, like that's worth more,
right?
For most people.
But if he's in love with her,
oh yeah, I mean, what a wild ride.
Yeah. Well, according to the Ohio Department of Corrections, John Savino is still incarcerated and will be eligible for parole in August of 2025. And finally, Ed George is still kicking. He's still doing it. He sold the Tangier building to the LeBron James Foundation in 2020 and rebranded the business as a catering company working in multiple venues throughout the Akron area. He's now in his 80s, but apparently still hasn't fully retired. He's still...
Workaholics do that.
Good workaholic, Ed.
Yeah.
So,
well,
there you go.
There's that. Yeah.
Who knows the actual truth, but John Savino is the man convicted for killing Jeff Zack.
I can't believe that they completely overturned her sentence and her conviction. That's crazy. But I understand it. Don't have to like it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about this. There's so much to my wheels are turning.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't specifically find like the interview that I found where she came forward was like written.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have like a lot of, there's not
like a gut feeling
video evidence of like watching her talk and seeing how to get like a gut feeling on stuff. So
wow. Well, I actually think you did a great job keeping everything straight. I wasn't confused, but I did take notes anyway because it's fun.
Yay. Good.
If you guys are confused, as always, let us know. Do you have an emoji for this week?
Yeah. So if you've stuck with us this far, give us a Moroccan-styled little building or temple, an emoji, if you will, in our comments on social media so you can get a Sunday shout out.
Woohoo!
And if you don't know, we'll try and comment one first so you know what we're talking about if you don't see it. If not, we're not picky. It's fine.
You can
You can give us a beauty queen too.
You can give us a beauty queen. You can give us a motorcycle.
Yeah, any of those. We're not picky. You'll still get a shout out.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yay.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you guys so much. And we will see/talk to you next week.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, guys. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Burden of Proof Pod and email us at burdenofproofpod@gmail.com.